Betrayal is one of the hardest emotional wounds to heal from because it doesn't just wound you in the present moment, it literally shakes the foundation of how you see people, how you see yourself, and how you see relationships altogether. So it isn't just the action itself that cuts deep, but the collapse of trust that follows after it. Trust is what makes you feel safe in the world, right? Trust is what allows you to open your heart and share the most vulnerable parts of who you are. And when that trust is broken, it feels like someone has reached into the very core of you and shattered something sacred. So betrayal is painful because it is personal. It usually comes from someone close, right? Someone you allowed in. If a stranger hurts you, you brush it off. It might suck, but it's not that big of a deal. But when it's a partner, a friend, a family member, someone you've built intimacy and safety with and trust with, it completely destabilizes everything. It makes you question your past, memories that you shared, the words that you believed. And suddenly, you're not just mourning what happened, you're mourning what you thought was real, right? You're questioning what you thought was real. And betrayal has another layer of cruelty to it as well. It doesn't only cause you to lose trust in the other person, but it often makes you lose trust in yourself as well. So you begin doubting your own judgment. How did I not see this? How did I let this happen? How was I blind to something? How did I not see the red flags? You begin doubting your own judgment, and that internal collapse is just as painful as the external one. Because if you can't even trust yourself, how can you feel safe moving forward? Now, here's where it gets dangerous. When betrayal isn't processed, it can calcify into lingering resentment. And that resentment doesn't just sit quietly inside of you, but it leaks into everything. It becomes projection, where you start treating innocent people as if they are guilty. And it becomes bitterness, where you see betrayal everywhere, even when it doesn't exist, right? You keep making up that narrative in your mind. And it can spiral into very unhealthy behaviors and mistrust and hostility and self sabotage, and even the belief that intimacy is a threat rather than a gift. This is why betrayal is one of the most important emotions to alchemize, not because the betrayal itself was your responsibility, because it is, but because your healing afterward is as well. Holding onto the poison of resentment doesn't punish the person who betrayed you, it punishes you. It binds you to them long after they have already gone. And healing betrayal is how you cut the cord. And I've been the biggest perpetrator when it came to betrayal because I used to never speak up for myself. I used to never stand up for myself. So I really easily built resentment against people because I kept replaying the scenarios in my head and I coulda, shoulda, woulda said this and done this to resolve the situation or to stand up for myself and so on. So I never did that. So resentment built up and I didn't secretly hate them for who they were. I built resentment for who I was not being. And then I built resentment against them because I blamed it on them, right? Instead of taking responsibility and seeing that it was me. So it was never about them, it was always about myself and me not properly healing and me not properly being who I truly am and being authentic and really standing my ground and standing up for myself. So I had to learn to alchemize betrayal many, many times. And I had to learn how to shift into authenticity and the true version of who I am and actually standing my ground and becoming my own person so that that wouldn't happen again in future dynamics. So how do you move through it? How do you alchemize betrayal? How do you transform betrayal into something powerful? Well, the first aspect is you need to let yourself grieve. Because betrayal, like grief, is a death of sorts. The death of what you thought was real. Allow yourself to feel it. Cry, rage, scream, write it out, talk to someone, move it through your body, move through somatic exercises. Too many people try and bypass this stage, but grieving is necessary to clear the wound instead of burying it, right? So it just moves that energy and it gives yourself permission. It gives you permission to just feel it, to just sit with it. Then separate their actions from your worth. So the betrayal happened because of their choices, probably, their lack of integrity, their inability to show up. It is not a mirror of your value. Your worth does not fluctuate based on someone else's ability to honor it. So if they did you wrong, fine. How can you move on from it? What does it? It doesn't say anything about you. So how can you move on from it without spiraling and without resenting them and without holding a grudge? Because it's not doing them any favor and it's not doing you any favor. Then rebuild self trust before external trust. You cannot build external trust, anyways, without self trust in the first place. But often betrayal leaves you feeling like you cannot trust your instincts anymore, right? How could you not see that? How were you blind to that? But the truth is, trusting someone was never the mistake. Vulnerability is still a strength. What you need to focus on now is proving to yourself that you can see red flags, that you can walk away, and that you can set boundaries. So, self trust is the bedrock of rebuilding trust with others. So, it's just something in you that needs to shift, right? It's not about them, it's again about you and the self trust that you're building within yourself in order to be able to trust others. And then release the need for revenge. So, revenge feels satisfying in fantasy, but in reality, it binds you to the very person you want freedom from. So, while it might be a small satisfaction for a quick dopamine hit for 2 minutes, maybe a day or two, it doesn't fix it long term, and it doesn't make you feel good long term because it didn't change anything. The longer you fantasize about making them pay, the longer you keep feeding energy into the wound and the longer you keep entertaining this whole bullshit. The willpower move is indifference. To become so grounded in yourself that their existence no longer matters to you, right? Because revenge isn't gonna do anything except for a quick dopamine hit. It's not as much as people tell you, oh, that was satisfying to see. That's just your ego. If you really heal and if you really moved on, you don't care. You really don't. Which brings me to my next point. You need to rewrite the meaning of betrayal. So, yes, it hurt. Yes, it cut deep. But you get to decide what comes next. Betrayal can become a story of being broken and ruined, or it can become a story of awakening, of radical clarity and activity, of transformation, of becoming someone better, someone new. Sometimes betrayal is the very thing that forces you to step into a higher version of yourself, right? One who no longer tolerates just breadcrumbs, one who knows her value and cannot be questioned. So I do want to emphasize that do not let betrayal consume you. There are women and men who let betrayal harden them into walls of hostility. And I used to be one of them. I used to hold grudges for years on end and couldn't let go and fueled that connection that actually wasn't there with that person anymore. But I still kept it up from my end. I still put energy into that, wasted my time thinking about it, putting myself in past states energetically. People become so wrapped up in resentment that they project it onto everyone. So you turn into man haters, woman haters, intimacy haters, all the things. And you wear your bitterness kind of like armor, right? Thinking that it's protection when really you're just building a prison around yourself. And you're making yourself sick. And I have been so guilty of that myself, especially when it came to friends. I never spoke up. I always harbored the resentment and was too proud to admit it and blamed them when it was still there. And when I was confronted with it, I blamed it onto them. I still pointed the finger, all the things, right? I completely denied it. I was in such denial. And I truly believed it would just disappear after a while of living with it. But that is not healing. And that doesn't work. It just makes it worse. And it just creates a narrative in your mind that wasn't even true, or that isn't even true. It's just another form of being enslaved by the betrayal. And you are hurting too many people in the process, right? You're doing them wrong, even if they did you wrong. You're doing them more wrong afterwards than they did you wrong in the first place. And you're hurting people that are collateral damage, basically, in the situation. So you're not meant to carry rage forever. You're not meant to project hurt onto people who had nothing to do with your pain. You're not meant to live suspicious and this cynical and cold. That is letting the betrayal win twice, basically. You're betraying yourself after they betrayed you. The work is to let betrayal fuel you but not consume you. To let it sharpen your discernment without dulling your capacity to love. To let it show you what you will never tolerate again without closing the door to the love, right? To the trust, to the intimacy, to the friendship that you do deserve. Betrayal leaves scars, yes, sometimes. But those scars can be reminders of your strength and not your bitterness or your resentment. It's proof that you have walked through fire and came out forged and empowered and not destroyed, right? That you are able to move on, that you were able to work through this and actually are able to trust yourself, meaning you can trust others as well.